Maritime is everything connected to the sea or waterways throughout the world, especially in relation to navigation, shipping, and marine engineering. The industry has a direct impact on much of our everyday lives. Think about the oil that powers our cars, many of our vehicles, our electronics, the coffee we drink, foods we eat, and the clothes we wear. Most come from overseas. And just like every other industry, there are bodies of laws that guide maritime activities and are commonly referred to as maritime law. How is it formed? What is it about? And how does it impact our daily lives? These and more we will be checking out in today's video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell-like notification bell to ensure you don't miss out on more enlightening videos such as this one. Maritime law, also known as Admiralty law, is a body of conventions, treaties, and laws that guide the private maritime business and nautical matters like shipping or offences occurring on the sea, ocean, and other bodies of water. Simply put, maritime is an aspect of law that regulates commerce and navigation on the seas and other navigable waters. How it started. The oceans had long been subject to the freedom of the seas doctrine, a principle put forth in the 17th century, essentially limiting national rights and jurisdiction over the oceans to a narrow seabelt surrounding a nation's coastline. The rest of the seas were declared free for all and belonged to none. While this situation lasted into the 20th century, by mid-century there was an impetus to extend national claims over offshore resources. Prior to this, the island of Rhodes had been credited for the making of the earliest maritime code, which was initially known as the Rhodian Sea Laws. History claims that the Rhodian Sea Laws have been in existence between 500 BC and 300 BC. The initial intent was for the laws to govern the trade between the Rhodes Island and the Greeks, of which the Rhodes were in a better position to dictate what happened during the trade. As time went on, the influence of Greece became watered down, and the Roman Empire became more prominent. However, the Romans thought that the sea laws of Rhodes were better and more peaceful, so they decided that it should be left to govern the maritime activities at the time. In fact, the Digest of Justinian was reported in 1533 AD to have ruled that any matters concerning any dispute in the Mediterranean Sea must be decided by the maritime law of the Rhodians, provided no law of ours is opposed to it. As maritime activities expanded to the Italian, the great free city of the Rhine, and the Baltic Oceans, the Romans leveled up the maritime laws to meet the new challenges they were facing. However, these laws were still derivative of the sea laws of Rhodes. These upgrades led customary laws that Roman courts became bound by and would later be adopted in Europe in AD 1000 and 1300. The three most prominent laws of those laws are Libre de Consulat de Mar of Barcelona, which was adopted in the Mediterranean, Law of Oleron, which was used in France and England, and the third was the Laws of Wisby, which governed the great free cities of the Hanseatic League on the Baltic. In modern times, the maritime laws that exist still have an undertone of the ancient laws, both at the national and international levels. An important part of the history of maritime law that cannot be left behind is the contribution of the wreckage of the Titanic. According to history, more lives would have been saved on the Titanic if there had been sufficient lifeboats on board. Also, the crew members that survived the Titanic disaster mentioned that most of them did not know how to operate the lifeboats on board. After the wreckage, new laws were developed regarding the safety of passengers on any commercial ship as long as it had people on board. Safety of life at sea, or SOLAS. In this regard, a ship would be in violation of maritime safety law if it did not have enough lifeboats on board, or if it fails in any safety measure that could cost passengers their lives. Also, the impact of the Titanic wreck extends to insurance in maritime law. So, as far as it concerns the history of maritime law, you should always keep in mind that the Rhodian Sea Law is the bedrock of other maritime laws that we have now. What aspect does maritime law cover? Every country has their own maritime laws, yet there are international maritime laws that bind countries as far as trade, navigation, and maritime dispute is concerned. Maritime laws cover aspects like the development of laws, customs, and excise regulations, the fishing industry, employment and maritime labor, insurance claims, pollution, and personal damages. Let's give a brief explanation of these aspects that maritime activities cover. Human rights and labor law. Most of the time, when ships are at sea, the captain does not go alone. They have crew members that go with them. There would be hostesses that attend to passengers on the ship, cleaners, cooks and chefs, and other workers. The fact that they work on the ship does not imply that they have been abandoned at the mercy of their employers. Maritime law ensures that they are well rewarded for their labor and that their rights are well protected. On the occasion where a crew member causes harm to a passenger on the ship, the owner of the ship could be vicariously liable for the damage done. Criminal offences. You must have heard about pirates at one point or another. Pirates are robbers that attack ships. Their activities date as far back as the 14th centuries. Most of the time, they would attack cargo ships so that they could cart away with valuables. While some of them were killed in defense of the ship they were about to rob, maritime laws made provisions for how they should be tried, where they should be tried, and the punishment that should be meted out to them. Besides pirates, any other person who attempts a theft at sea will be judged based on maritime law. Ownership. Usually it is easy to think that no country can lay claim to the ownership of the sea or related bodies of water, since such water bodies have shores in different countries. However, maritime thinks differently. The maritime law spells out the extent of ownership the country can lay claim to. For instance, by maritime law, a country can lay claim to the ownership of a sea 12 miles from the seashore. There is also the economic zone that a country can still legislate upon. The rest is regarded as international waters, and any foreign ship that sails to these shores without an innocent intention or by permission will be regarded as trespassing and in violation of a crucial maritime law. Insurance. Remember the Titanic? Under maritime law, after the wreck of the ship, if the ship has been insured, the owner of the ship is entitled to damages for the replacement of the ship and other losses that may have arisen from the wreckage. Negligence and damages. For passengers on board or owners of cargo on a ship, they are bound to sue and recover the losses they have incurred from the negligence of the ship owner or the crew members if the risk could have been easily foreseen and prevented. Taxes and charges. Yes, this should be regulated by the government of most countries, and it still is. However, maritime law decides which country is to receive the tax for a ship. In maritime, a ship is to be taxed by the country where it is registered, but destination countries are liable to make demands for terminal handling charges, early arrival charges, and other charges they deem fit. Why should you care? Well, you might have thought at some point that you are not as affected in any way by maritime law as much as you are with any law regarding transportation by road, plane, or even rail. If you ever have, you might just want to have a rethink after this. Actually, if you love cars made in foreign nations, or you consume any goods that are not locally made, or you even send items to your friends, families, and clients in other countries, you might just want to reconsider your stance about being concerned about maritime. If you also like to have a cruise ship on the Panama Island someday, then you should not ignore maritime for any reason. Maritime law governs international trade, shipment, and even movements on the sea and all of those activities. In fact, if you look around you, maritime law governs most of the transactions that go on around you, from the cars you see to the dresses that were shipped down, even to your phone made in China. So if the industry crashes today, there is likely to be a spike in the cost or even shortage of some products because they are transported by ships. Think of the oil and gas industry. This industry is heavily dependent on the maritime industry. Most of the oil that is traded on the international scale is transported via ships, so the world might have to deal with a shortage of oil if there are no ships to transport them to where they are needed. It's a wrap. Did you learn a thing or two? Now that you know about maritime law, what would you have done if you had a parcel on the Titanic ship? Let us know in the comment section. Hit the subscribe button and be the first to know when we post new videos. Don't forget to like and share with your friends. See you in the next video.